I just want to follow up on a couple questions that some of you asked Krishan and that I got some extra information on that might be helpful to you. The past problem, the way to address that is what you learned, how you overcame it, and where you're headed to next. Okay? That's the quick and easy. The question on flying out, not a lot of these schools will fly you out, but it's like I said earlier, if you don't ask the question, the answer is no. So Amherst College in November had a program where community college students were invited to come out and spend a Saturday with Amherst College, and they covered $200 of your expenses. So if a college is on your list of colleges that you're interested in, by all means, get on their website or pick up the phone, call the admissions department. You're probably going to get a student first, which is great because, hey, Smith College is my #1 choice. Sound familiar? It's always your #1 choice, as we said earlier. Is there any opportunity to come out and tour of your campus? Is there anybody got any help on funding on that? Just ask. They know. University of Chicago. We have had a couple of students that got into University of Chicago, and some of their credits, like the question asked, did not transfer. However, they wanted a syllabus for every class you had taken. The same thing at Yale. And they did grant them some credit for those classes because they wanted to make sure it was of the same rigor as what they're teaching at the University of Chicago or Yale. In addition to that, even though they had gotten federal Pell Grants for 2 years of undergraduate, and there's a limit on financial aid on how many years you can get, University of Chicago said, don't worry about that. You don't need financial aid from the federal government to attend here. So they granted them extra time to complete their education. A young woman that was a Jack Kemp Cook winner last year also was at Wesleyan University in Connecticut, where my stepson went. She had done 2 years of community college, and Wesleyan said, well, if you want to, you can do 3 years of undergrad. And in addition, since you're getting a degree in the sciences, we have a special program where you can add a 4th year to that, and we'll be able to complete your master's, and we won't charge you for that 4th year either. So, it's build on what you can ask these schools.
For our local Prairie State example, so Kron, our student that went to Stanford, he's, again, given permission to share academic info because he knows people want to know this. They took 45 of his credits from Prairie State. So just by the standard review process, we actually sent more information that they're looking into it more.
Excellent. This next portion is what I call all things financial aid, excluding institutional grants. I'm going to try and compress this down into about a presentation. We do have Evelyn, right? Yvette, I'm sorry. I'm not the greatest memory anymore. Financial aid department, director of it, right? Excellent. And just like you want to make best friends with her, at whatever college you're applying to, you want to make best friends with the financial aid office there as well. But let's get started. My feedback, where's my clicker? I'll find it again. Some surveys I've seen says that only about 7% of students understand federal and state financial aid. And so we're going to try and get you a little better educated in case you do not go to one of these schools and end up going to a different school where you're going to have to use state or federal financial aid. Real key there is it's not how much a school costs, it's how much it costs you. And these schools we've been talking about on that list of 70 are probably going to cost you little or nothing. So that's why I keep trying to key in on those schools. FAFSA opened up on October 1st. Everybody in here filed their FAFSA already that's eligible? If you haven't, great homework assignment for you. And it's always FAFSA.gov, never FAFSA.com. If you go to FAFSA.com, they're going to charge you $69 to do something the federal government will do for free for you. So don't make that mistake. Federal student loans, the max for dependent students as a junior and a senior, $6,500 and $7,500 at your next school. And you always want to get the most amount of subsidized loans. Subsidized means that the federal government is paying the interest while you're in school or while those loans are deferred. The unsubsidized loans are starting to accrue interest on day one. And these schools have some flexibility on how much they can give you in subsidized versus unsubsidized. And it also depends if you're a dependent or an independent student. If you're a dependent, parents' information, tax information is what they're going to use. Independent student, they're going to use your information. Over 24, married, veteran. However, there is also a special stipulation called dependency override that's available to you. Certain conditions, you got to be emancipated from your home, basically, have been previously in the foster care system, and there are a couple of other ways of doing it. That can increase the opportunity for you to get a larger amount of federal financial aid as far as a loan amount. It'll increase the loan amounts that you can potentially get. Subsidized and unsubsidized, if you get $1,500 and $1,500, you got $3,000 there. No interest is accrued while you're in college, so the balance is $3,000. Unsubsidized, if you end up with $11,000 and the interest has been accruing since the beginning, you're going to owe $11,800 2 years later when you graduate. So always try to negotiate with the financial aid office at that particular college the best possible amount of subsidized loans. Parent Plus loans. I really hate these things. Interest rate on is 7.08%. First payment's due 1 month after you start college. And pretty, it's like giving mom and dad or your aunt or whomever is credit qualified to get you a Parent Plus loan to pay for that school. It's like each year is going to be a new car payment. First year is going to be, $500, if they borrow $25,000, it's going to be $400, $500 a month. Second year on a Parent Plus loan, $400 or $500 a month. So if you can find an opportunity to go somewhere where you don't have to take one of these loans out, that's great. Illinois MAP grant, you can get up to $5,340. Apply early, funds run out. I believe last year they ran out of money around March 15th. Even though the deadline to apply is April 15th, you can get, once again, $5,340. Go on the Illinois MAP grant website to find out which schools qualify. Because most schools in Illinois, four-year universities, do qualify. I believe there are a couple that do not. CSS profile. Everybody in here is familiar with the FAFSA, right? If you apply to one of these 70 schools, you're going to have to complete a second financial aid package called the CSS profile. It's on College Board. It sounds really onerous. It has 400 questions on it. And 400. I like to say this is your way to real money. All right? Because CSS profile is a different way of looking at your family's financial aid package or picture. It lets you explain things more clearly. And what they're really trying to do is find very wealthy people that have found ways to hide money. Because like one of the questions is going to be, how many ounces of gold does your family own? Okay? How many ounces of silver do they own? A whole lot of other things of where wealthy people have stashed cash. What kind of trust are you involved in? What kind of business organizations? Most all of them, for me, when I did it for my stepchildren, no, don't know anything about that. Nope. It took me about an hour the first time, and from then on, it took me about 10 minutes to do it. It wasn't a whole lot different than FAFSA. It was just reading through 400 questions. Some of the schools are going to have school-specific data on there. And let's say your expected family contribution on FAFSA is $5,000, which is what it was for a student I worked with last year. Their parents had were asked a question by Wellesley, Women's College out in Massachusetts. What year are your cars? 2003, 1999. They said, hey, you guys are going to need money to replace those cars. So they whopped the federal EFC of $5,000 a year down to $0 just because they needed to repair their cars. So plenty of opportunities there to get more money. Endowed college loans, international college students in the past that I've worked with have gotten what were called endowed college loans. They were personal loans made to international students so that they could cover the cost of attending, and the interest rate varied depending on the college. Two of the three that I worked with, the interest rate was 0, and one, I think it was like 4%. Private loans. Try to avoid private loans if you possibly can. They're interest rate driven. Some have variable interest rates as high as 18%. There's no counseling. They can have higher fees, and they're not eligible for loan forgiveness. So, private loans, try to steer clear if you possibly can. Federal loan payment, if you graduate with from one of these schools, and the amount of loans that they would require you to take out is roughly $14,000. At the end of 2 years, you'll have a balance of $14,300. Standard 10-year repayment would be $152 a month. Types of loan plans that can count for loan forgiveness for qualifying public or nonprofit after 10 years. You got to make 120 payments. There are only 3 types of payment plans that qualify. When you graduate, and if you are going in a place where your federal loans, or you're going to go into a job that would permit you to have federal loan forgiveness, make absolutely certain you're in the right payment plan. Program's been around since 2008. I forget how many hundreds of thousands of people applied last year for loan forgiveness, many of them thinking they had made 10 years of payments, and only 1% have qualified so far for loan forgiveness. Many people were in the wrong repayment plan. And I could tell you what the repayment plans are now, but I would encourage you to check that when you graduate, because things change in government. So make sure that you really delicately do that. Next page. Question?
A lot of the Parent Plus loans are a big chunk of a lot of kids. Does that repayment go towards the Parent Plus loans or only towards the student loans?
An even worse fact about a Parent Plus loan, let's say that you take out a Parent Plus loan for 2 years of $50,000 total, and your son or daughter is involved in an automobile accident, passes away, you still got that loan. Quick thing on work-study jobs. Whether you go to one of these 70 schools or not, once you get accepted into the school, find out when you can apply for a work-study job. You want to apply on the very first day. The reason I say that is you get paid based on the hours that you work, and now you want to think about what's the best quality job I can have on campus. Can I check out sports equipment in the gym for 3 hours a day and have maybe 5 minutes where I'm actually working, and 2 hours and 55 minutes a day where I'm getting paid to study? Okay? You wait till the last minute. Jobs are like, hey, we need somebody in the cafeteria. If you're in the cafeteria, you gonna have any time to study? Nope. So apply early, get a job. If you're really looking to really do well in your education, try to get a job in your major department where you're sitting maybe as a receptionist or some other type of position, interacting daily with the very professors that are teaching you, so that you can really get a more in-depth experience. Okay, we're going to talk about financial letters, and we've got a couple of handouts to pass out. A couple of things about reading the fine print. Hidden loans. For example, I had a student that went to Loyola, and the award letter looked really great until she saw this little thing where it said a Loyola student loan, and it was a private loan at 14% interest for a very large chunk. What I call bait and switch. they give you a really big PTK scholarship, but you still got a lot of leftover money. What they're really that you got to pay. They're giving you what looks like a really big discount. That's all it is. They're discounting the tuition at a school. Let's say you go to a school that gives you a scholarship that pays all of your tuition as a transfer student. What is it going to require in order to have the scholarship the second year? Some of these schools have got very onerous GPA requirements. For example, they might want you to have you might have to get a 3.75 GPA to get your second year scholarship. And all of a sudden now you've done your junior year, it's your senior year, and now you've got to come up with an extra $25,000, either in a private loan or a Parent Plus loan. So make sure they're not doing that on you. Make sure it's. And another thing, if you're not covered by your parents' health insurance, check with the school and see if you have the opportunity to shop around for health insurance, because these schools are going to want you to have health insurance. And a couple of other things. Why do I keep pushing about having 10 plus applications? Hopefully 20 applications, much like Krishan had here. Multiple acceptances add up to multiple award letters. My stepdaughter applied to 20 schools. She got into 16. Her real number one school was St. Olaf. Her last choice was Emory University in Atlanta. Emory gave her the absolute best financial aid. She called up. I coached her a little bit. She was 17 years old at the time. She called because it's better for the student to interact with the department than me as a parent. Hello, St. Olaf. You really are my number one school. But Mom and Dad are going to have to chunk out an extra $10,000 a year if I go to St. Olaf over Emory University. And the financial aid department said, well, let us get back to you in about an hour. And they called her back in about an hour. And the difference was no longer $10,000 a year. It was $2,000 a year. So, but if you only apply to one school and you only get one award letter, how do you negotiate? You can't. So, multiple schools. Get to be best friends with the financial aid office at each school where you're accepted. I had a young woman that got accepted at Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville, and she went down there after she was accepted and met with the financial aid office, and initially her out-of-pocket expense was $5,000 a year, and the person said, oh, we made a mistake. You're eligible for this scholarship, and you're eligible for this scholarship. Your out-of-pocket expense will be $1,000 a year. All right? Apply to one of the schools that's not on the 70 list. Check into the financial aid opportunities and scholarship opportunities. Elmhurst University, out in the suburbs out here, offers you all kinds of transfer scholarships. And there's some fine print down in the bottom of the scholarship area. This says, if you write us a letter, you're eligible for up to $2,000 in extra scholarship if you explain to us why you need that money. There are a lot of other. Look at every opportunity. You can always appeal your financial aid award letter. And at these 70 schools, they have something called special circumstances. Medical, dental, death, loss of income, disability. Let's say you're accepted at Vassar University. By all means, take and you have your family has a large medical expense out of pocket. Call the financial aid department and say, hey, we just dropped $7,500 out of pocket for a medical expense. I know, I did it with my stepchildren were in school on two different occasions. Max ended up with a rare illness out at Wesleyan one year, and Jennifer blew out her knee pole vaulting at St. Olaf. And our out-of-pocket expenses in both cases, they just dropped the $7,500 we had paid in medical and reduced our expenses for the following year by that amount. Parent loses a job, let them know. These schools are going to work with you if you're in the 70 on the list. Any questions about that? I know I went rather quickly, but I wanted to try to cover a lot of topics as fast as I could for you.
No. The CSS profile is more so for university level. Although this year it will be a little bit differently. The math program traditionally is for Illinois residents. However, international students will have an opportunity to apply for the math grant, quote unquote. So that's when the CSS profile kind of come into play, but it'll be a little bit different than a traditional one. So no, you're not really required to do it here. Once you transfer, then absolutely you should. If you don't mind, may I interject a few things?
Sure,
Really
go
quickly?
ahead.
I don't want to interrupt the program. I do want to speak about two things, the dependency override as well as the professional judgment. So the last thing that's on the slide right now is special circumstances. So let's start with that. Special circumstances. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. I'm usually pretty loud. Oh. For the special circumstances, so for example, if you have a loss of income, if your parent were, say they were employed 2 years ago, which we use 2 years previous taxes now, and so for the 2019-20 year, you will be using the 2017 taxes. So if those taxes are no longer accurate, it no longer shows your real ability to pay, you can do what's called a reduction of income. So you would supply things such as your parents' last check stub, or if the situation is with you, your last check stub, a letter to say, a narrative to say what happened, what occurred. You will submit that to the financial aid office along with, any supporting documentation, and the advisors there will review it and try to reduce what's called your EFC, your expected family contribution number, and in that way you may be eligible for more funding. It is a bit of a process, and you really have to build your own case. Okay, the onus is on you to prove that you no longer have the same ability to pay. The other thing I did want to touch on, do you guys have any questions about that? Yes, ma'am.
So how does that work in terms of the filling out the FAFSA? Do you just wait until you have to previous dates, or do you?
You do your FAFSA first. You always do your FAFSA. If you can do it on October the 1st, you do it on October the 1st, right? Once you complete the FAFSA and you know that the situation has changed, then you start to gather your documents so that when you submit, if you're selected for verification, you want to submit everything at the same time so that it can start to go through the process. Okay. The other thing I wanted to touch on was the dependency override. Oh, yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. 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 You sure can, because we're still in the current year. So the 2019 year, remember when you do complete the FAFSA, is from July 1st to June 30th of the next year. So you're still well within the 1920 year to where you could still submit the necessary documentation. Yes. Yes, I do. So I actually bought flyers. We offer financial aid workshops where you can come in and complete the FAFSA itself. We usually offer it every single year. Right now we still have, let me have that one. We still have sessions available until December. So if you have not completed your 2021 FAFSA, you can definitely come and we will help you guys to complete it. So I touched on, okay, so dependency override. Dependency override is still what's called a special circumstance or professional judgment. That's in cases usually of neglect, of abuse, simply not living with your parents or parents refusing to give information does not constitute a dependency override. I just want to make that very, very clear. But if you are an orphan, if you are or were awarded a court, things of that nature, absolutely your dependency can be overturned based on that. Again, when you apply for the dependency override, you write a narrative and you also have someone else, an outside party, to write letters on your behalf as well. A credible person, a counselor, a school counselor, a pastor, someone that can definitely speak to your situation, as well as a relative that may be able to speak to your situation. The Parent Plus loan, The regulations have kind of changed with that. Now, if the student, as long as the student is enrolled for at least 6 credit hours, the parents do not have to make payments on the Parent Plus loan until after the student either graduates, withdraws, or fall below 6 credit hours. Okay, with the subsidized loan, I'm kind of skipping around a little bit. The subsidized loans, we have to award those loans first. If you're eligible for the subsidized loan, then that's what we have to, and we're only allowed to award you a certain amount. So the total amount that you may be eligible for is $5,500. $3,500 of that is the subsidized, and $2,000 is the unsub. So we award the subsidized first. If that's not enough, then you can always borrow from the unsubsidized loan. And one last thing, work study. So I want to be perfectly clear with the work study program. While you're at work, you're expected to work. The study part is outside of it. Now, any financial aid office that's worth their salt, if you will allow you, they have to allow you to work around your school schedule. So if you are supposed to be at school in the class from 1 until 2, you cannot work during that time, right? But on the other hand, if you are working from 1 to 2, then you are working from 1 to 2. And it's absolutely the best thing for you is to try to get into an office that's in your program. I'm a product of work study. I started off in work study at Robert Morris as in the financial aid office. 12 years later, I work now in a financial aid office. I discovered my passion, by working in the office, and here I am now. So I said that to say, if you have the opportunity, and not all students will have the opportunity to work study, but if you do, know that you actually have to work during your hours, and try your best to find an area that you really like, or that's close to your major. Okay. Any other questions for me? I know I said a lot.
So if you're like a social teacher, what would you recommend your work study?
That's a good question, and it depends on the school that you're in. So I don't know, maybe if you want to do like counseling, or sometimes even the advising office as well. So yeah, but make best friends with the financial aid department. Do not be afraid of us, okay? Don't fear, especially at a university level. Sometimes I worked at a university prior to here, and sometimes the VPs, will call and say, hey, we have this scholarship available. We need to spend it now. And we would literally have like 2 hours to spend it. Well, guess what? On our monitors, we would have our students that came in and say, I really need help with this. I really need, funding. Do we have anything available? And we would literally take down the Post-it note and call the students and say, hey, I need you to come in right now to sign off on this. So please make friends with the financial aid office. Just come in and say, hey, because I guarantee you, we will remember you. And when something comes up, you'll be the first one to know. Okay. Thank you.
Outstanding help. Thank you. We passed out some award letters. These are real award letters for real students that I've worked with in the past. And I've got several different versions in here that I want to take a look at. Let's start with the package that says Elmhurst College. We're going to go through about 4 different schools with this particular student. She had an actual expected family contribution of roughly $12,000 a year because her mother made pretty nice income. And Elmhurst College, they gave her a really great financial package. And if we look down there, the Transfer Excellent, the Enhancement Scholarship, that's the one I was talking about where you write a letter. Phi Beta Pell Grant, Federal Supplemental Grant, State of Illinois MAP Grant, Federal Work Study, Subsidized Direct Loan, and so on. It came out to she would end up having to take loans out of roughly $6,500 a year, plus a Parent Plus loan of like $9,922. If we flip, or if we just work our way through the package, I like to show this one because University of California system is very popular with students thinking they want to go there. It's also not very financially friendly. She applied to the University of California at Merced, And their evaluation, if you take a look on page 5, down near the bottom, where the big circled 5, it has total self-help and Parent Plus loan. It would have cost her $37,000 a year to attend the University of California in Merced. You're probably going to see similar numbers, unfortunately, at the University of California, Merced, or the UCLA, because they're much like Illinois. They're broke. All right, the state don't have no money. They don't have no money. You can't get no money. Next, she applied to University of Illinois at Urbana. She did get some financial aid there. She also got a bit of a scholarship, but at the same time, that Family Parent Plus loan came in of $10,797 a year. And then UIC of Chicago, on page 9, the Parent Plus loan shows up again of $10,649. What I'm trying to point out is if the place doesn't have any money, they get the money somewhere. Her financial aid award from IIT, I mean, she got the presidential scholarship. She got all kinds of, she got the MAP grant, STEM scholarship, PTK, transfer scholarship. She got a lot of scholarships, $39,000 worth. But when you get on page 11, you look down there, family contribution, it ended up being a direct Parent Plus loan of $10,923. You get the picture I'm painting? It is ugly. She applied to USC, which is one of the schools on the list. It cost a whole lot more to attend there than any other school on the list. And she ended up taking out only $4,500 in federal loans. And she had an estimated remaining cost of $7,374. And they were able to find some other ways to make that number get down a little lower, and her actual out-of-pocket ended up being $2,000 a year to attend USC. Once again, it's like our financial aid officer said, if you don't ask in the financial aid, you're not best friends with the financial aid office, you ain't getting extra money. But if you take advantage of it, you can do it. Going through the list here, the next one's for St. Olaf. Up in Minnesota, where my stepdaughter went, it cost $55,820 to attend the school, including room and board. And if you take a look at the package, the individual's going to take $6,500 in federal loans out, and there are no Parent Plus loans. This is a different student than the first one we were talking about, but there are no Parent Plus loans in that package. The next one is an independent student, and the cost of attending Wellesley College for tuition and room and board is $53,026. And if you'll notice down there, she ended up having to take out a $3,000 subsidized loan for each of her 2 years, and there's no other loans in her package at all. Same student, by the way, last summer, she was looking for something to do for the summer, and she worked it out with Wellesley, so she ended up spending the summer for 8 weeks in France studying cheese, and coming back and a report on it to one of their scientific departments about what she had learned about cheese in France. What a tough life. And just like I brought Krishan in here, Gabby, who's the woman I'm speaking about, we've used her several times and brought her into the classroom once via Skype or Facebook Live. And her comment to students is, when you get to one of these type of schools, there's money laying everywhere. All you got to do is reach out and ask. So it's once again about the question of, if you don't ask, you're not going to find out about it. Just like the scholarships that our financial aid department was speaking about. The next award letter was for somebody with a 0 EFC, and it was to to Illinois Tech, and they gave her $48,000 worth of aid, which included $7,500 in loans. But if you look down at the middle part of the page, Direct Plus loan, it was an independent student, they can get Direct Plus loan of $17,969. I'm trying to point these out so that when you look at your own award letters in the future, you'll be able to look for the key things that jump out that tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. The next student applied to USC. This student was an undocumented student. She was also a Jack Kemp Cook winner last year. And the total cost to attend the school was $81,000. She had an estimated net cost after all of after a $63,000 grant of $18,000, and because of Jack Kemp Cook, her out-of-pocket cost was $0. The next one is for Mount Holyoke, and I bring this one in only because it's actually a national student, and unfortunately for you, it will not work. But Mount Holyoke is an all-women's college. But it also shows just how generous they are in their financial aid. And if you're a woman, I would strongly suggest taking a look at the women's colleges, Mount Holyoke, Smith, and Wellesley in particular, because they provide great value for the money. It costs $69,000 to attend school there, and this international student is actually paying less to attend Mount Holyoke out of pocket than she was spending to attend community college at Harold Washington because of the rates that they charge for international students, which is, in her mind, was a very, very good deal. This same student got an award from Trinity College, and it cost $75,000 to attend Trinity College. But I'm pointing this out because I've worked with some students who maybe were not in the United States totally legally from another country, and she got $52,000. Her GPA was 3.875, and there was another person that was in the United States as an international student applying under their program. Because her GPA was only 3.25, the college only offered $25,000 in grants. GPA matters for international students in particular. I will say that at Trinity, we've got a number of students from Harold Washington that are studying there and are paying nothing out of pocket. And the next award letter is for Smith College. Once again, her essay is in the package that you received with the essay from Krishan as well. And you could read about her, although there's some information blanked out. The cost of attendance, and I realize it's not made for old guys' eyes, $65,000 a year. And she got a lot of grants and more grants and more grants. I mean, Smith College Healthcare Grant, Smith College Health Grant, Smith Grant, love grants. You don't have to pay it back. Then you go on down to offered loans, and she is taking out $1,830 in loans for the year, for each year, and everything else is covered. So these are real life examples of what applying to and attending these schools can do for you financially. Once again, I'd really encourage you to do so. And anyone has a question?
So does that have to start us at fall or spring?
So in order to receive the maximum amount of MAP, you have to be enrolled in 15 hours. But if you're enrolled in less than 15 hours, it's prorated based on the amount of hours that you are enrolled in.
I didn't know that. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Any other questions on what we just ran through? I realize we went kind of quickly.
Yeah, question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So For the Pell Lifetime eligibility, can you explain what that is and the percentage
Sure.
for that?
So the Pell Lifetime Eligibility Units, or Pell LEU, essentially you have 6 years of full-time enrollment to still receive Pell. So once you've reached it's called 600%, which essentially is, like I said, 6 years of full-time enrollment, then you're no longer eligible to receive the Pell Grant. But if you attend half-time or quarter-time, it's kind of extended, but there is a cap to how much you can receive for the Pell Grant and the subsidized loan. You got about that part too.
This may or may not be true. Is it true that it starts over once you get a degree?
No.
No.
Once you earn a bachelor's degree, you are no longer eligible to receive grants. I think that's all.
If anybody else has financial aid questions for our financial aid office, can you catch her on break? What I like to do is I'd like to end this session and plan on coming back at like 3 o'clock, and we'll have one last final marathon to rush to the end. Since I had to compress the program into a lot shorter time period than what we normally allocate, at least when I do it at Herald, I'm going to try and combine all of this, or like 3 hours worth of stuff, into the next minutes or so. And I do not have a PowerPoint set up for this particular aspect of it. But we're passing out a few things right now to you. Number one, undergraduate transfer scholarship. Is everybody know about Jack Kemp Cook? Jack Kemp Cook, everybody, if you don't know about it, okay, Jack Kemp Cook is the best community college scholarship you can apply for. Unfortunately, with Jack Kemp Cook, you must have only attended community college. Okay, $43,000 a year, up to 3 years. The deadline, November 20th. So, still time to apply. You go to the Jack Kemp Cook Foundation and apply. Your family income has to be less than $95,000 a year. Anything else you want to say on Jack Kemp?
Quick acknowledgement to my colleague, Dr. Melanie Adams-Spencer, who's been secretly attending this whole morning. She is a math professor here. She has mentored 2 Prairie State students have gotten this scholarship in 2013. We had 2 students semifinalists for it last year, but they're okay because they're in pharmacy school and got a free ride somewhere else, you know. And she is she is like our ace in the hole. Be sure you're talking to her, that she is on your list of people to connect with. Does not matter if you're in her class or not. You do not have to be a STEM major, okay?
And actually, they also support graduate, like $75,000 towards graduate education.
Yes. Which just brought me to think about something else. Bear with me. But once again, take advantage of it. It's probably the best scholarship that is out there for a community college student. We passed out a Dream USA. I know what I was going to say. They support undocumented students as well on Jack Kemp Cook, so don't be afraid to apply. Dreamer USA. You got the flyer here for it. If it fits you, by all means apply for it. I'm not sure exactly how many scholarships they give out, but I know at Herald we had 19 students that got the scholarship this year, or last year to transfer on. Illinois Rise Act. Are you familiar with that? Not very. Okay. If you're an undocumented or a DACA student in Illinois, January 1st, they're going to, if you Google Illinois Rise Act, there's going to be an opportunity for you as a DACA student to go in and apply for state funding, very similar to what the Illinois MAP grant is there. So that's another funding source as well. Got an extra set of essays for that got students into Dream College. It's much like the librarian brought the book in, and you've got a set of winning essays. I believe. Take a look at these to get some context other students have written about. Don't let them be your only. Don't let them steer you to what you write about, but just look for suggestions and things that would be of use to you. In a moment, we'll talk about a few other things, but I had a student come up to me during the break and ask, I don't see any art schools on this list, okay? And I had another student said, which schools have engineering? I just like to point out that some of the top art schools in America are on this list, and they're just not known as art schools. Whether you're looking at a Vassar or a St. Olaf or a Wesleyan and many of the others on the list, do some Google searches. Check. I did a quick one, really quick. Best colleges for cinematography in the USA, and it lists about roughly 35 schools there, and some are not on the list. They're California schools. They're state California schools that don't have money, but I found about 15 on the list for cinematography. I know several of you were pre-medical. This gave a ranking from one website of what's the best school in America to attend to get into med school, and it listed 11 schools. I would encourage you to also Google something like which schools have the highest acceptance rate into medical school. Because let's say, for example, you're a pre-med student at Stanford, you're going to be competing with probably 400 other pre-med students at Stanford. If you're a pre-med student at a school like St. Olaf, you might be one of 15 in that class. And it's a lot easier to stand out in 15 than to stand out in 400. So look at that aspect of it, how many pre-med majors are in that particular school and what past success have they had in getting into schools. And I have another tangent note here on mine. It's a little sidetrack. How many of you actively participate in study groups in this group? Okay. Let me share a couple little statistics with you from the professional educator side, air traffic control. We track down in Oklahoma City new hire applicants. We ask them to do several evaluations along the way and tell us what their study habits are and stuff like that. Air traffic control is a really great job. Actually, $150,000 a year after 3 years, $250,000 after 10 a year. So a lot of people try to get into that particular job. We track individuals that come down to the school, and over the last 3 years, every individual that came to the school not participate in a study group, that did it solely on their own, our pass rate for those individuals was 0%. None. Our pass rate for those in a study group, 45%. The reason I use that stat is that, if you get together with a group of 6 people or 5 people, and each of you understands 25% of the material, and you go around and you facilitate back and forth and take a look at whatever difficult equation it is. Oh, you're fine. Whatever difficult issue is that you're dealing with, and you support one another and interact and have a conversation for an hour and a half, by the time you get finished with that hour and a half, each of you is transferring information to the other person they didn't have, and you're going to walk out of that room understanding 90% of the material, which is going to greatly facilitate how you do on tests and better yet, how well you master the material to begin with. So I would encourage you to reach out and build study groups in your core classes here. And I can tell you, when you move on to a 4-year university, that's just one tool that you can take with you that'll greatly benefit you on achieving high-level grades. But now let's talk about building a list of schools that are reach and high reach and everywhere in between. And I'm trying to pick out. Actually, I'll tell you what I'll do. We know his academics, the gentleman at Stanford. What was his academics? Yeah, his grades. 4.0 in college, okay. Okay. In that case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a student I know from Harold. That way, she was majoring in business, and I know we have several business majors in here, and here are her stats. ACT of 24 and a GPA of 3.60. And she wanted to major in business. So when she and I got together, we sat down and we took a look at this list, and I had it on my computer so I could change this around and sort it by GPAs. But I also know which schools she applied to, and she applied to Brown University with a Brown, which was a 3 average GPA. Does everybody have Krishan's information? Okay. Normally I have a PowerPoint for this, but it did not make it here. Brown, one of her reach schools, and the average GPA at Brown was 3.85. And I'm trying to remember Brown. Brown did not require a test. Another of her reach schools was Stanford. And at Stanford, the average GPA is a 3.8. Another of her reach schools was University of Pennsylvania, which does not, it unfortunately does not tell you what their minimum GPA is. And then at her mid-reach schools, where she fit in a little bit more in line with her GPA, was Smith. It has no minimum. It's a women's college out in Massachusetts. And her other, the University of Dayton, and it was a 2.7, and it did not require a test. And also she applied to Connecticut College, which had an average of 3.4 for a GPA. You can do the same thing. Go through the schools, sort them out. First of all, do they have your major? How do they rank in your major? And it's kind of, unfortunately, the rankings they're kind of biased. Many of those are, somebody pays money, that type of thing. But if you look across the list, if you look at Forbes and how they rank them, you look at U.S. News and World Report, how do they rank them, and maybe the other couple of ranking services, you're going to see the same. You're going to start seeing some of these high-end schools on that list as what's best for your major, and then pick the ones that match up with your GPA. And the reason I'm putting these up here, and she also applied to the University of Michigan, which had I think about a 3.5 GPA minimum. And other than that, she applied to Northeastern here in Illinois, Eastern Illinois, and Northern Illinois University as her safety schools, along with UIC. She had really great essays. She had really great recommendations. And those were the scores she had. And she got into every one of the schools that she applied to. Okay? Because, and the reason I want to point this out is that SAT scores are hugely biased against people of color. They're hugely biased against people without money. The wealthy, they can afford to buy a tutor. They can afford to take tests multiple times. These schools, like Krishan said earlier, take a holistic approach to you. And even though Stanford and UPenn required her to submit scores, They threw away the ACT score, didn't care about it, and looked at, hey, here's the whole person. And she actually ended up going to the University of Michigan. Their business school has got a really fantastic financial aid program, and she's on a full ride there for that. Does anyone have any questions about how to build a list of schools? How to reach into this data and pull out and find what you're looking for? You have a question, Crystal?
All I see is like all these different schools and like.
Well, I would encourage you to do much like what Krishan said earlier. Get to know these schools. Pick up the phone and call the admissions department, okay? You're going to get a real student on the phone very first time. And say, hey, I'm thinking about Vassar. Tell me about your experience at Vassar. Why should I consider it? You can also go on their individual colleges' websites. For example, at Cornell, they've got a 62-page PDF about how to transfer there and why to transfer there. Okay, goes very in depth of what the students were that applied, what they look, and what they're looking for, what you can expect to get out of them. Call the Career Center at the college you're thinking about attending. Hello, Career Center. How many of your graduates are employed 6 months after graduating? What's their average salary? All of these schools are going to be able to tell you. I mean, it just opens up how good you could do it. And for example, like business administration, if you're thinking about going into business management, Cornell, it's got a school called School of Industrial and Labor Relations. 43% transfer rate, higher number of transfers in the school than accepted out of high school, and just a fantastic program. And everyone saw the cost at Cornell. I really like that one. By all means, give it a shot. Any other questions about how to maybe decide on a school or to pick a school? Yes. I can't hear you. I'm sorry. Oh, that's a really great question, and I'm glad you asked it because it's a point I really wanted to emphasize. Extracurriculars. Well, that's your biggest extracurricular, okay? I've had the opportunity, like I said, I reached out to Amherst, and Alexia, who was the admissions director there, said the most important thing a transferring community college student can do is under their extracurriculars, list what they've done, they participate in, but more importantly, tell us how many hours a week they work. Because the number of hours you work per week has a direct reflection on your GPA. Almost always. If you're working 40 hours a week and you got a 4.0 GPA, great. If you're working 40 hours a week and you got a 3.25, great too, because they're going to take into consideration what you're doing at work. Have you been promoted at work? Have you done something different at work? Yes. I'm sorry? Oh, explain it. Explain it. Put it on application. Run it on the Common App where it says extracurriculars. I work 60 hours a week. I can back it up with pay stubs. That type of thing. Yes, address it there. Other extracurriculars, I would tell you, some of the students that I've been talking about, they were heavily involved in student government. They were heavily involved in clubs and activities at their school. A whole lot of them were just like you just said, 40 hours a week, and they're other questions on that? Anything else related to extracurriculars? Okay, and another, sorry, I'm having one of my senior moments at the moment. Oh yeah, go right ahead.
Just as I mentioned, that 1 hour flight exercise, you want the Prairie State, one example, so Kron's, that 1 hour video, we go in full depth of extracurriculars he did, both in his other parts of his life as well as right here on campus, that built that holistic picture of what got him into lots of schools that are very hard to get into. Not to sidetrack, but
Oh,
give you a moment.
and another point I wanted to make on that is that, I mean, some people have to care for a sibling at home. You know, you got a younger sibling, you're caring for grandma, you're caring for somebody else like that. Put that information on the Common App. Explain why you didn't have time to participate in the debate club or whatever other club is in there. These schools want to give you opportunities. Any other questions before I try to remember what I was trying to remember? Oh, okay. If we could move on to scholarships for a couple of minutes. I like to talk about scholarships because, and I know you're coming up on the 21st. Whole other angle. Okay. Let me talk about that. Which scholarship do you think is easier to win? The one for $10,000 or the one for $200? 200. Okay, we're on the same page. Apply early, apply often. Did you know, anybody in here left-handed? Did you know there's a scholarship only for left-handed people? There is. Okay. Anybody got the last name Smith? Nope. There's a scholarship with the last name Smith. Okay. All right. So, what I like to tell students about scholarships, they come in every flavor, every color, every type of aspect. One of my former colleagues, his daughter graduated from UIC as a physical therapist, and she paid for her entire undergrad and her entire grad school, all on scholarships, none of them bigger than $350. Okay, everything. The key to that is apply early, apply often, apply all the time. Back in my day, I had to put a 50-cent scholarship application. Now it's ding, and it's going right in there, and you don't have to pay a dime. And I see a question back there.
Are like local scholarships, but like where would I find local scholarships?
That's a great question. My favorite friend is, for example, there are African American fraternities out there that provide scholarships in the local area. There are probably opportunities to get a scholarship at almost any kind of nonprofit organization out there. What do your parents do? Okay, they may very well have an opportunity to get a scholarship there. Anybody eat at Taco Bell? You know, Taco Bell today opened up $6 million in scholarships. All they want you to do is submit a 2-minute video. Okay. Taco Bell, yeah. Google Taco Bell, $6 million in scholarships. They want a 2-minute video. Come up with something creative. $25,000. Tylenol. I mean, what I like to tell people about scholarships is that there are a lot of great websites for research and scholarships. There are a lot of really bad ones. The bad ones don't want to charge you money. You don't want to do that. Scholarships.com, they're going to spam the hell out of you. So if you're going to create a scholarship, or you're going to try and research scholarships and so on, and maybe dig up a little information, go over and create a new, Jim Poole, @gmail.com email address, so all the spam gets dumped over there and doesn't mess up your regular email box. College Board has a lot of scholarships on it, where you can search individually for scholarships. Scholarships.com is another very reputable website. Start looking for the ones that seem, College Board will ask you to sort it by maybe what your parents do, where you're from, what part of the country you're from, stuff like that, and help you find scholarships. If you end up going to a school that is not on this list, you want to search out private scholarships at those schools, because they may provide an opportunity for you to get, just like Krishan, while he's going compliments the Obama Foundation, there might be an endowed Jim Poole scholarship at LSU, or there might be an endowed scholarship to at a different school for a different name person. And you might pick up $1,000, you might pick up $5,000. It's all about that. Education, I know there were a couple of educators in here. Illinois Golden Apple, great source of, great resource for those of you that are majoring in education. Those are off the top of my head, a few things. Questions though?
Actually, yeah, so this workshop is all about, so this is designed for any student that's pretty much a 2.0 or higher, about learning scholarships, actually smaller type scholarships that you can take to whatever school you go to, that you can be applying for to go to Prairie State, you know, like, even if you have little soft cutters and you're like, oh, but it's hard to get to this school. You could be applying for scholarships and outside agencies, and that what you're doing now is practicing and doing that to help you work towards bigger money or things like that. So, yeah, background.com. A year ago, I had a Prairie State alumni of ours who was just planning I'm going to self-pay, I'm going to stay local to keep costs down, got amazing grades, but I knew it wasn't going to cost everything. But he used Unigo, and he found that he qualified for the Covenant Scholars Program at UNC Chapel Hill. I believe it was being both low income and first generation college student, and he got a full ride. So, like, that stuff happens. I'm just going to write a couple of them down.
Oh, certainly. Osher, anybody in here between the ages of 25 and 50? The Osher Foundation, you want to write that down, O-S-C-H-E-R, I believe it's how it's spelled. At certain colleges around the country, it provides pretty scholarship help.
If you're under a different status, then you only see the ones that you're eligible for. So.
And one thing too, someone asked about the local scholarships. You know, some of your village halls actually offer scholarships. Go to your villages. One that comes to mind is Soft Village. I know this because I wrote a recommendation for a student once. But go to your village hall, guys, and then also the community organizations that your parents might be a part of, your churches, various things. They may have scholarships, so don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, Dr. Spencer, you know, when our guest speaker earlier was talking about how some professors just do templates, most of the professors here don't. Dr. Spencer and I looked at each other and we're like, no. Like, that's if they don't know. You get to know your professors. So they can write in-depth good things and give them a lot of extra lead time to write the good stuff. Question?
There's a question.
Oh, I got a question here.
How do you apply for federal grants other than the Pell Grant?
Federal grants, Pell grants?
Other than
Pell grants. The only other federal grants besides the Pell Grant is a Supplementary Educational Opportunity Grant, SEOG. And when you fill out the FAFSA, your school will check and see if you're automatically eligible for that. Otherwise, that's the only other federal there for education. The Bernard Osher Foundation, that's one I talked about for 25 to 50. I know there are a lot of nursing students, or several nursing students in here. If you're a U.S. citizen, two things to check out for nursing scholarships. The Veterans Administration, they provide full tuition for nursing students. They've got certain obligations for you. You got to come back and work for them for a couple of years afterwards. They're paying really great, well, I won't say great, they're paying great salaries for starting nursing students. And the Bureau of Indian Affairs also has a great scholarship for nursing, because I know it's hard to find nursing scholarships, and a lot of these schools on this list don't necessarily specialize in nursing. There are a few nursing schools on the list, but that's another avenue to get your education paid for there. Other questions? I'm trying to, there are one or two other points I wanted to make, and I'm just drawing a total blank on them. just go out. You have a question in the back, yes.
But I guess my question is geared more toward, I'm a single mom. A lot of these students in here, I'm glad to see them go to different colleges and experience the whole thing, but I don't need room. I have this thing. So when you look at the award letters and some scholarships that they give you, do they give like single moms and stuff like that good scholarships as well? You know, because it doesn't include women's board, it doesn't include this, it doesn't include that.
It's a great question. Let me answer that about. Tell you about a woman we worked with 3 years ago. She's at UNC Chapel Hill. She's 45 years old. She has 5 children. Okay? She's living in an apartment that's funded by UNC Chapel Hill. Her children are going to a lab school that is run by UNC, and student teachers and so on. They're getting one-on-one education. She's attending UNC full-time, and she's on a full ride for every bit of it. And everything is included in that. Does that answer your question as clear as I can? Okay. Yes, that is available to you. And I'll eventually remember I was wanting to hit on. Osher Foundation, that. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we covered reach, high reach. I mean, if you got a 3.5 and the school has an average of 3.5, you're okay. If the average is 3.85 and you got a 3.5, that's truly a reach school. I mean, I would encourage you not to have a list that says, because I have worked with students, their lists look like this: Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Cornell, Brown, UPenn, University of Chicago. You run the risk of not getting in anywhere. I would actually encourage you about Harvard. Last year, Harvard accepted that many transfer students, and they probably came from Yale. The Harvard process, because I've worked with a couple students that have gone through it, it's 80 hours. It's going to take you 80 hours to complete the application. It's intense, okay? Take that 80 hours, put 20 hours into 4 other schools. Much better way to spend your money or your time and your effort. End results, much better opportunity. I don't want to dash anyone's hopes that wants to go to Harvard. Don't want to dash anyone's hopes that wants to go to Princeton. Princeton had 1,435 applicants last year. They accepted 13. 7 of them were community college students. 6 of them were veterans. As you're looking at that list of transfer statistics, and that's actually where I wanted to head with that, look at schools that have a high transfer acceptance rate. Connecticut College, for example, 46% of the people that apply get accepted. And they've got a great program. They got a great campus. Fantastic. Couple of other things to add in there. I might have spoken about it earlier. If you're a woman, check out Smith, Mount Holyoke, and Wellesley. 19 students from Harold Washington are at those 3 schools. The thing some of the feedback I get from women about them are, oh, I don't want to be in an all-women's school. Well, at Wellesley, they've got dual degree programs with several adjoining universities, including MIT and Babson for business. The odds of getting into MIT as a transfer student are just about the same as Harvard. But if you go to Wellesley and you want to study astrophysics, like this one young lady I know is doing, she's studying astrophysics at MIT while attending Wellesley, but she could have never achieved a transfer into MIT itself. Likewise, if you're at Smith or Mount Holyoke, they're a part of a consortium of 5 colleges that include Amherst, University of Massachusetts in Dartmouth, and I can't think of the third one. I think it's Hamilton, along with Smith and Mount Holyoke. They can take classes at any of those particular campuses. If you get into some people want to be in California. If you look at the Claremont-McKenna area with Pomona, Pitzer, Claremont-McKenna, and several other schools, you have the opportunity to take classes at any of those colleges as well. And like I said, the UC system, like UCLA, UC Berkeley, UC Merced, UC Santa Barbara, UC San Diego, they don't have any money. So look at the private schools out there. And the other thing to remember is it's only 2 years of your life. It's probably going to be the best 2 years that could possibly ever happen. Take some risk while you're young. Go explore the world. Take advantage of that study abroad. In my life, I've had the opportunity to visit almost half the world's countries, and the perspectives that you gain from having that exposure to cultures different than your own is invaluable, and it'll truly help you into the future.
One of the things you were trying to remember, you touched on briefly, at some of these schools, the transfer acceptance rate is really, really low. Mm-hmm. But in certain colleges within the university, certain majors, it's very high. Do you want to, can you expand on that?
Expand on that. Cornell, we talked about it earlier. Arts and, they've got the Arts and Science College, 2% acceptance rate. College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, 23% acceptance rate. College of Industrial and Labor Relations, 43%. Do your research inside the school to see how many schools they have. UPenn has numerous schools. USC has numerous schools. The odds of transferring into the various schools within the school can have a substantial impact on what you're actually paying or whether or not you get in. Yes.
Honestly, I have super deep. Like when I do go on these schools' websites, where do you find the numbers for that? You can see the transfer rate for English majors at this school is this. Where do you find that?
Okay. The place to find that is, I actually Google. Okay. Yeah, I love Google. I used to have to go to a library and get an encyclopedia out. Talk about a tough thing. Back in the day, now you get everything you want is on the phone. Admission rates by school. Cornell University transfer admission rates, School of Agriculture and Life Sciences. Boom! It's going to send you that 62-page document that I talked about earlier, and it'll be right there. And then you go, oh, there's the other 6 schools right there. UPenn, same thing. USC. It's just a matter of Googling and asking the right question. 1890. Sure. USD 1890. They provide an opportunity for full ride scholarships at HBCUs. HBCUs are notorious for not having full ride scholarships. Nice thing about the USD 1890, well, let me tell you the ramifications on it. Okay, for the USD 1890 program is run by the United States Department of Agriculture. Okay, that's what the USDA stands for. And the goal is to get people into agriculturally related majors. Now, my question for you would be for example, if you're going to be getting a degree in communications, agricultural communications, for example, how's that going to be any different than communications in any other area? It's all about how to communicate. But this is all the application process and so on. Let me give you the other aspects of it. It covers room and board, books, fees, and tuition. It gives you an internship in the summertime that if you complete 600 hours of internship, it gives you a full-time job on the back end with a 6-figure salary within 5 years with the U.S. Department of Agriculture. There's the requirements that you have to be GPA, U.S. citizen, and if we can go back up a little bit higher, and those are the schools that participate in the program. And it's another great opportunity for you. I've got a friend in the back. Nathan, yes, you want to say something real quick?
How you doing? My name is Nathan Shaw. I'm a graduate of Tuskegee University. University in Tuskegee, Alabama. And I just found out, that in 2017, there's a new scholarship that I want to make you aware of, and it's called the Red Tail Scholarship Foundation scholarship program. And what it does is, if you can go back a little bit in history, before 1940, blacks were not allowed to fly airplanes, and so after 1940, the first black pilots that were trained were at Tuskegee University. They were, of course, they're famous, the Tuskegee Airmen. And what they would do is they would paint the tails of the airplanes red. Well, even to this day, and here it is, 2019, what they found was this particular organization just was established in 2017. What they found was that around 2% of the military and the commercial airline associations are filled with minority pilots and airplane mechanics. So they wanted to address that. So what they've done was they've established, for the students, of course, at Tuskegee, they established this Red Tail Foundation scholarship program for anybody that's interested in flying planes. And what they're doing is, and don't let the minority, when you hear minority, I know some of the people here may think it's just for black students, but keep in mind when they say black students, let's look at the other categories like black women, there's even fewer. White women, there's even fewer. So they're not, women are not flying planes, are not going into the airline industry. These are high paying jobs with great futures. So what they've done is they've addressed that by creating this scholarship. So don't let that stop you. So please go online. There it is right there. I have a number that you can call to get more information. Like I said, this is a brand new scholarship. And the number is, if you want to write it down for people who may be interested, 334 area code 721-3591. And of course, the email address, the website is redtailscholarshipfoundation.org. But I invite you to think outside yourselves. I don't know if you were interested in anybody was interested in the aviation industry, but it's something that you at least need to think about. And of course, if you're not interested, maybe somebody you know is. Let them know. Give that number. Take that number. Call them. Go on the website. Find out what you need to do in order to take advantage of the opportunity, because it's sitting there, just established in 2017. You may be able to help yourselves or somebody that you know and care about. Go to school and have an outstanding career, all paid for through this foundation. So thanks a lot.
Hey. It's almost 4 o'clock. I know that she has to jet to an airplane in a few minutes. Just in closing it out, I really appreciate feedback, positive and negative, because it helps me to do better next time around. Feel free. I'm going to hang around for a few minutes outside. If you have questions or so on. Any comments about the class today? Oh, sorry.
He is doing this completely as a volunteer. He called me up after a story was written about our graduate that's now at Stanford. He called me up. I want to share information. And then the first time we talked, it was an hour and a half. I checked it when I hung up. I'm like, oh my. And then he volunteered to come down here, and I'm so grateful. Just the little things to keep remembering us.
Well, thank you. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. But yeah, any feedback, any questions you have, you've got my email address. By all means, take advantage of it. I really would encourage you to go home tonight, build a list of 20 schools, pick out 6 mid-reach, find 6 safety schools, and take a chance. I had a lot of opportunities in life that were created for me because I was white. And unfortunately, those same opportunities aren't always available. That white privilege isn't always available to students of color. And I started doing this, like I said, in community college, and I found out that, I can make a positive effect on people's lives. And I've seen the world change for a lot of young men and women, and even some older men and women who took up the challenge and actually went forward. I wish all of you the best of luck in the future, great success. Love to hear back from you 5 years from now that, hey, I'm in a master's program at Stanford or Yale, or I'm employed doing this or doing that. Thanks again. I look forward to hearing the results.